Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. I'm joined with Debby Kruszewski, who better known as Debby Kruz, and I'm just going to introduce her as a dream pollinator, and we will expand a little bit on that title throughout the conversation. So, Debby, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Dan, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to this conversation. Before we get started, just introduce yourself to, who is Debby today?
Well, I am a dream pollinator, like you said. I live in my dream every day, just listening to God's word and doing my best to um, just live my life to the fullest by the path that He keeps giving me. And I find it exciting. And some days it's super unknown and it could be really scary, but I'm loving every minute of it and helping people on their journey to follow what's on their heart. And it's exciting and fun, and I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Your story really resonated with me because you mentioned about listening to God's voice and just going out and writing, which is very similar to my story. That led us on to this full-time RV journey that my wife and I are on now. Is really listening, and I'd published a book back in 2012, and I always wanted to write more, but you know really never had the time. And it was back in 2019 when I started hearing this voice, it was time to start a new chapter, which was, for me, it was difficult at first because I loved what I was doing. It wasn't like I was in a dead end 9 to 5, hate your job scenario. Like I loved the work that I was doing. I was, working for a nonprofit organization that I had founded, had been doing that work for 30 years, and we were doing amazing work. And it was just, it wasn't easy for me to embrace that and to close that chapter in my life and open a new one in my early 50s. So it was it wasn't the easiest decision for sure. So you know you were a COO, um, and again you kind of heard this voice to shift. Was it something that you embraced at first, or were you similar to me where you kind of resisted it initially, or were you just that much better than me and jumped right in with both feet? I'd love to hear your side of the story.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to, when you say it out loud and you're telling people, you feel like a crazy person. I had realized in my life that there were several times where God distinctly spoke to me, like I heard His voice and I dismissed it. I was like, yeah, that was really loud and I got it, but you're wrong. And when I defied the message, things put me in a bad path. And the last one, before him telling me to leave my job, was a relationship that really went in a horrible path and was very destructive to my life. And once I realized that that was God speaking to me, and I was like, why didn't I just listen to Him when He told me to go running and get out of that? I was like, I'm never going to, God, the next time you speak to me like that, I will listen. And when I was at my job, I felt like I was going to die. I really thought that I was going to have a heart attack or, something detrimental was going to happen to me that was just going to kill me because I just felt so much weight of this negativity on me. And I thought it was going to eat me. Um, and I just was praying to God. I'm like, God, just help me. What is it that you want me to do? Because being here does not feel like this is the right answer. And I was actually on my way to see my uncle. He was in hospice, and we were essentially going to say goodbye to him. And I was sitting in the back seat of the car, and I had my laptop out because I was doing some work stuff on the ride. And God said, "How about you just flip and go into a new word page, and why don't you start writing? And I think you need to start writing and leave this job, and I will take care of you. I promise I'll take care of you. Just do it." And I was like, I promised I would listen to you the next time. And as wild and crazy as it sounds, I all I see is light, and all I see is that's the answer. And I put a plan together and I got out, and everybody thought I was crazy, and they still do. But it's not about them. It's about my journey. And I never regret it, and I never look back. I every day it's just a new open avenue of wow, that's bigger than the dream that I have. That's bigger than what I wanted for myself. And you just really, once you really learn to get through that dust cloud of fear and anxiety, then the next one that comes at you, you're like, I know how to weather the storm. I know how to weather that storm. And it's really just leaning into your faith and your trust in God. And there's so many times where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But if you just ask him to help you, he will. And it's amazing how you just are like, why isn't I doing this all along? But really, every day, if you're just in constant conversation with him, he will lead you into the right path and into the right conversations, into the meeting the right people. And it's so fabulous, but it's not the easiest to get there. And you'll always be on the journey of learning more of how you can get closer to God.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So, were did you have a history of writing, or was this something completely new to you?
It it wasn't foreign to me, but yeah, it was pretty new to me. I was horrible at writing. I remember in elementary school that we had some tests that we had to take, and it was like write an essay, and I couldn't do it. I was all over the place, and they're like, "You're gonna fail." Okay, I'll learn how to write, and then I wrote, and they were like, "This is the greatest thing ever." But I never pursued it because I didn't know that you could, was really something you could make a career out of it. I did have a college professor tell me that I should be a writer and that one day I would be. And I laughed at him too. I'm like, no, I'm told I was supposed to be an accountant. That's just totally different. So I wrote some stuff in my mid 20s. And by circumstance, I had the book that I had wrote wasn't really all that much of a book. It's probably more of a short story. It it disappeared, and there's lots behind that. But I was like, yeah, forget it. This is just worthless. But it did answer the reasons why it disappeared. Answered a lot of questions later on when I was writing, because how it disappeared, somebody in my life at that time decided to rip it up. I don't know why. And then I had a computer virus, and my computer completely fried. And then the jump drive that I had it saved on, I was working on a job with a client, and they thought I was trying to steal their information. So she cleared the whole disk. Why? It just wasn't my time. And that story will still be written one day, but I think it's evolved into a whole lot of other things. And it really was important for me to really still reflect on what that story was about and keep me my creative, I guess, juices going. But I never thought about writing after that original book until God spoke to me that day.
Yeah, I love that. So, what do you mean when you call yourself a dream pollinator?
Well, it's intriguing, I think, but in on my journey of learning of who I am and finding what's really in my heart, I did some work on what my name was, which is Devorah from the Bible, and a Hebrew name, and its name is the Bee Seeker. And I also have an aunt that made me a plaque of the psalm from my actual time of birth. And it's called the Seeking One. And there's just no coincidence that both of those match. So I realized that if you look into what a bee really is and what it symbolizes, it's pretty impossible. And it just wants everything and everybody around them to be extremely successful, and that's why they pollinate, to make things beautiful around you. So if you're always looking outside and you see all this beauty, they're like, I'm so great, so glad that greatness makes you happy. Like it's just beauty and it's positivity, and they just want success for you. So I realized that, what I did really well in my jobs was using what gifts God gave me, which I feel is I have a clairvoyance of, I could look at people and I could see their potential and I could see the goodness in them and what makes them happy. And I was able to use that and work on these leadership programs to help my employees be the best version of themselves. And I did some math because I love my analytics still. And I had promoted over 550 people in under 4 years to their next level of their career. And it wasn't that path of like you start at A, you go to B, you go to C. It was all different things, and some people left, and that was fine because they were just pursuing their dreams, and they'll never forget that job of, hey, this company allowed me to do this to better myself. And I just want to take it a step further and be able to offer that to individuals, because it is such a beautiful project to work on yourself and do the hard work of really learning what's inside and what is on your heart. And if you think about it, it's not that hard at all. We just make it so complicated. So, I mean, one client I had, she's like, I was told I have to be a doctor because everybody in my family is a doctor and I want no part of it. And all of a sudden, by the end of the session, she's like a country singer and she's going on tours. It's just so much fun to be like, I don't, I could see a vision, but really working on what you see your vision as. And it might sound completely crazy, but if we unpeel the layers of it, you really find all the talents that you have, that this is what you can see in your head of, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be a country singer, but it could be something else. So it's a lot of fun to really get into those layers and really unleash what's inside of you, instead of watching it sit on a shelf. And it's fabulous. Just getting to that first part gives so much excitement to people, and it just ignites fire inside of you, and you just get on that path and you're running, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think fear plays a big part in that. I mean, I think as human beings, we're constantly thinking about, what's going to go wrong. I mean, that's just human nature to fall into that trap of, what's going to go wrong. And it reminds me, I did a podcast a few months ago with a woman named Amy Scruggs, who just released a country song called "What If It All Goes Right," and it just talks about that same, that exact scenario that we're talking about here, where you know so many times people are caught up in, well, if I make this decision, this, and this can go wrong. But instead, we need to just start thinking about, what if it all goes right? I mean, even just relating to ourselves, in selling our house and all of our belongings, we could have easily gotten caught up in, everything that could have gone wrong in that process. I mean, we were not, RVers. We never, I never drove an RV before the day I drove ours off the lot, Um, so it was a learning curve, and there was some fear, but it was just having that faith to kind of keep moving forward and just keep taking one step at a time. So, when people come to you and they get hung up in, that fear, how do you get them over that? How do you, make them understand, well, hey, what if it does all go right? Kind of like that song says.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a process. It's not an overnight success of getting over it. It really is working on the trust, and it really is working on recognizing where your fear comes from and recognizing what it looks like. And I learned, and I teach this to my clients, how to do a meditation of finding what your fear distinctly looks like and being able to talk with it. And I do exercises with clients of, all this fear is a part of you. It is a huge part of you. And you need to take it out on a date, or you need to feel like, come on, buddy, we're going here, or and learn what the fear is, because it doesn't know anything more than you, and you created it. So it's, what is it that you created, and what does it look like? And being able to go on a date with it, spend time with it, and embrace it, and then be able to break up with it and say goodbye and give it to God. You see where your attachment is, and you learn a lot of lessons of, if I could break up with my fear, I could break these bad habits. I could break getting out of this job that doesn't serve me. I could break these barriers. So it's really is a process of knowing what your fear is, what it looks like, what it smells like, what it talks like, and you see such a different side of yourself. And you, once you come to that realization in the cycle of, this is a part of me, this is me, and do I do as much as I think I need it, I have to let it go. And that's really hard, and a lot of people don't want to do that work of learning what the fear is and what it looks like, because it's you.
Right.
And it is a part of you separating. It's the old you and the new you. And I, when I had started to tell my story, I said how I felt like I was going to die. That was my separation of the old me, the fear, and all of the things that don't serve me. That piece of me had to go. So that was a death to me. But so I when we see fears and we see how scared we are, it comes to us in those avenues. But it is God saying, yes, you, there is a piece of you that's going to die, and that's okay, because that's a piece of you that doesn't serve you anymore. But look at what you're going to gain. Look at where you're going to grow, and look at the directions you're going to go in by saying goodbye to this and leaving that behind. And that is when you realize that was really scary, but I did that. And I, without having the knowledge of, I was letting go of my fear and anxiety and all the things that didn't serve me. And you, when you realize God was with me the whole time and he got me through that. And now I'm afraid of this, like the, whatever the next avenue is, it's like, I don't have to be, because you can look back and go, wow, God was with me, and I don't need that piece of me anymore. And walking people through that process is an enlightenment, but there's a lot of hurts and upset and anxiety that you're in it, and it's just recognizing and really working on the tools to get through that. And it could take a lot of time for some people.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's all a process. I think that, when you overcome that first step, then each subsequent step is a little bit easier than what the last one is, because your faith is growing throughout that process, your trust is growing throughout that process. So, you know, the first step is always the hardest. That first one, it's always the hardest. Is the people that come to you, are they all already people of faith, or are there some where you gotta completely sell them on the entire concept of trusting God?
I think everybody has faith. It just looks different to everybody. And, you know, I love this question because a lot of people are like, well, what if an atheist comes to you? And I'm like, well, an atheist has faith to know that there's something to not have faith in. It's like a Bad Friends episode. Like, I know you know that I know, but so everybody has a level of faith. I mean, what I call God and the Holy Spirit, a lot of people call it energy in the universe. It's like, okay, I think that like faith and God is a food court. It's what you can see, taste, feel, relate to. A pizza and a quesadilla, are they a lot different? I think it's fun to learn how people relate to God, and really it helps me get closer to God by learning different ways of how they view it. um, it's really pointing out and recognizing how you do rely on your faith every day, and everything you do, you just don't see it that way. And once it's really just enlightenment of, that's what faith is. Like, yes, that's what faith is. walking into an elevator, getting on a train, anything you do, you're putting a trust that you're going to get from point A from point B. Uh, you know, we could go on and on of every single moment. There's no coincidence that, we're here today having this conversation.
Right.
God wanted us to be together. So when you look at every single thing of your day, you're like, wow, that was faith and that was God, and how amazing. And when there's 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 ways that people have that enlightenment moment and they're like, oh wow, okay, yeah. And I think it's fun always to help people see signs and symbols because they're everywhere. And I always get them started. The first thing as write down and say out loud, I want to see a yellow butterfly and I want to see it in the next 48 hours. And writing it down is sort of like making a contract, and saying it out loud is also putting it out there. And just let it be, and let it come to you. And it could be, it may not look like a yellow butterfly, but you don't know what shape or form or way it will come to you, and it will. And it's pretty remarkable when it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, yeah, well, that's you having a conversation with God. That's you putting it out there. Can you help me? Can you show me that you're here? And it'll come. It will come.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So, obviously it was one thing for you to start this journey, on your own, listening to God's voice and getting out there and to start writing. But what was it in you that wanted to, essentially give back and help others be able to, not just hear his voice, but, help them to actually listen to it?
I I wasn't sure what I was supposed to really be doing with my writing. And I wrote a few books, and people were getting so much out of it of, wow, that really helped me. I really got connected with, um, you know, knowing there's a lot of connections with the afterlife in my first two books. And just having that trust in God. And I saw that there was distinct messages that I didn't really know that how much it was going to resonate with people, or how much I was really putting that out there. And it was just me telling a story. So I really wanted to do more with it because I felt that people were were hungry for something more. And as much as I do want to write more books, I was just forever. I call it aisle five. My mom makes fun of me. She'll never go food shopping with me because she's like, yeah, we're always stuck in aisle five because there's seven people want to talk to you and ask you all these help questions. And I'm like, well, I should do something with it. And realizing that I did run programs when I worked in corporate America that were successful, and I could tune it up and I could really have it focused on centering yourself to God, and believing that He gave you gifts and dreams on your heart. And why do we sit and watch them on the shelf? And I just wanted to help people get there. I want people to know that they have potential, and know that if they're unhappy and miserable, you can get out of it, because I've been there and I've done it and I've helped other people do it. And I just felt that was my next calling, to really work on a program that would help people find God in their heart. And there's the Dream Pollination program.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this now?
I really put out the Dream Pollination program probably in the past few months. I was doing some other similar coaching, but I really sort of coined the name, and felt like that's where it works. So probably since the spring, I've really been full throttle in promoting the Dream Pollination program, and so far it's been successful. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's a great concept, really, and I love the story behind it, for sure. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to bring up that you think would be valuable to the listeners?
No, I think we covered so much. I mean, I am grateful to be here, and I just want everybody to follow what's on their heart. And I would love to help anybody that is interested in learning more. My books are a great place to have a feel good stories of wild journeys of knowing that you're loved and protected. So if anybody is looking for a good snuggle night book to read at night to get them to sleep, I hope that will help.
Awesome. And so how do people find your books, your writings, if they want to engage you and, need for you to pollinate their dreams? How do people get a hold of Debby on the internet?
Great. I have tried to keep it as easy as possible. My website is debbykrusz.com. So that's DEBBYKRUSZ. My social media is the same at Debby Kruz, DEBBYKRUSZ. And that's all the usuals: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter. I think that's enough. And I have a blog on my website. I'll be sending out a new one shortly. And yes, please feel free if you'd like to talk more. There's a button on my website for a 15-minute consultation to get to your dreams.
Love it. I love it. So, Debby, that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places. And that comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song, Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. What's one of the little things that Debby does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place?
I every day I send out a list of prayers to it's national. If anybody would like to join, you're more than welcome. And I really try to every day take a few minutes to pray for all the people on the prayer list and really embrace what's on their heart and realize that a lot of people are so afraid to ask for prayers because they don't think they're worthy. And I try every day to make sure that everybody knows that they're worthy and say a prayer for all those prayers that they're afraid to ask for.
Love that. Love that. Debby, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. This is a fascinating conversation. And again, to be able to connect with someone else who, heard that voice and acted upon it was really special to me. And for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. And while you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Debby, again, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan, for having me.